Looking at the timeline for the activation of the crisis management plan, or in particular the public service continuity plan, which was mentioned by Dr. Herbosa, we see here a graph on the horizontal axis, our operation time, and on the vertical axis, our operation level. So our normal operations are at this point. However, a disruptive event may happen, and so we have a downtime. And during this downtime, our ICS is activated. So with that, we have our immediate responses. It may involve the use of our emergency protocols, search and rescue operations, basic life support operations, etc. And this is part of our incident management system. Now, our crisis management plan, or the PSCP, is activated until our Tier 1 mission essential functions are restored at acceptable levels. And we continue with our PSCP until the restoration of our Tiers 2, 3, and 4 mission essential functions are attained in order to go back to our normal operations. Now, why use the incident command system? The incident command system is a standard on-scene all-hazard incident management concept that can be used by all crisis management committees or disaster risk reduction and management committee members or member agencies and response groups. This allows our users to adopt an integrated organizational structure the complexities and demands of single or multiple incidents without being hindered by agency or jurisdictional boundaries. Now, some incidents may happen locally. However, some incidents may involve agencies outside the university or even outside our jurisdictional boundaries. And we can use the ICS for coordination, command, and control of all the response groups. I'll talk about the three C's later on. Now, the purpose of the ICS to ensure first and foremost the safety of responders and other members of the incident command system. Before the ICS was adopted by the Philippines, magulo and some of the responders were actually at harm. Okay. The second purpose of the ICS is to achieve our tactical objectives with efficient use of our very limited resources. Now, some issues and concerns from past disasters and incidents are the following. There's lack of reliable incident information. Sometimes we rely on nowadays social media for information about the event. And in most cases, or in some cases rather, this information that we get from the social media are what we refer to as fake news. And so we also have inadequate communications. Now, another issue is that there are unclear lines of authority, or we don't know who is in charge of managing the incident. And too many people are reporting to a single supervisor. Now also, there are too many responders na yung iba hindi na talaga kailangan because of the fact that there are too many response organization structures that are being followed. Now also, unclear and unspecified incident objectives. So, yun ang problema pagka maraming masyadong responders. Now, another one is that there is no check-in procedures for the responders. Sometimes the responders will just go to the incident without coordinating with the person in charge or with the structure in place. And that lack of structure for coordinated planning between agencies will cause some problems. Now, especially if outside agencies are already on site, some of them will say that they are already in charge. And also there are differences in the terminologies used by the different agencies. Now, what about the legal basis for the incident command system? Republic Act 10121 or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act of 2010 mandates that in response to the challenges encountered from past major incidents and disasters, the ICS was mandated to be established in the Philippines. And Section 9 mandates that the Office of Civil Defense shall formulate standard operating procedures for coordination. Now, in the implementing rules and regulation of this Act, Rule 7 says that the OCD shall establish ICS as part of the Philippines on-scene disaster response system. NDRRMC Memo Circular Number 4, Series of 2010, which was signed in March 28, 2012, provides the implementing guidelines for the use of ICS. EO number 82, Series of 2012, which was signed on September 4, 2012, mandates the activation of the ICS in all human-induced crises. And I forgot to mention that this EO number 42 also mandates that this will be used not only by the DRRMCs, but by all agencies of the government, including state universities and colleges. Memo number 43 issued recently in 2016, which was signed in August 18, provides the guidelines on the interoperability of the incident management teams and response clusters. And there are so many more issuances mandating the use of the incident command system. Now, where can we apply the incident command systems? The first is we can apply the ICS for planned events or organized gatherings such as parades, Loyalty Day parades in UPLB, graduation ceremonies, concerts, local and international conferences, and other events usually characterized by having high density population of audience or significant profile of attendees. Now, some considerations for planned events are the following. The type of the event. So will it be just a university event or will it involve other stakeholders or guests from outside the university? Second, possible incidents or disaster scenarios that may occur. Okay, so for instance, stampede, just like what happened in the Wawawi situation or stampede. The location, the size, and expected duration of the event. Will the planned event involve single or multiple agencies, single or multiple jurisdictional or multinational event, such as the APEC visit here in UPLB? The command staff needed, the kind, the type, and the number of resources that are needed in the event. Will the event involve air operations? Will there be a need for different staging areas for the different response teams? And the facilities or other requirements such as communications, sanitation, and medical services, and any other known limitations or restrictions. Now, there was one instance here in UPLB where we had that disaster. I would rather call it a disaster because there was no coordination with the UPLB administration. Bigla na lang nagpuntahan dito ang mga more than, I guess, 30,000 people who were promised money out of the gold from the Marcos loot. UPLB was not prepared for that, so naging disastrous ang campus noon And one disaster was sanitation. Yung mga tao kung saan-saan na lang nagre-relieve ng mga sarili nila. Traffic, grabe. So I would know that chief silang is to that. Sakit sa ulo ang inabot namin. Now also we can use IC especially for major incidents or an occurrence or event, natural or human use that requires an emergency response to protect lives or properties. Major incidents generally result to massive casualties, damage to property, or disruption of operation. This picture on the left shows what happened to my house here in UPLB after Typhoon Glenda. So I was a victim of Typhoon Glenda in July of 2015. And the picture on the right shows our director, executive director, Mahar Lagmay, and me assessing the earthquake in Mindanao. The area where I was standing when we evaluated this after 2 days became a crown, and that resulted to a landslide. And fortunately, we were able to recommend the evacuation of the people living downhill. Now, major incidents may be natural, such as earthquakes, typhoons, floods, or disease outbreaks like pandemics and epidemics, or they may be human-induced or anthropogenic, such as fire. This picture on the right here is the fire in UP Diliman Faculty Center. It may be CBNRE, that's chemical, biological, nuclear, radiological, and explosives. It may be civil disturbance or riots, or even active shooters. And the third are what we refer to as NATEC, or technological hazards that are, or technological disasters that are triggered by natural hazards. So an example of this happened in Sendai in the Tohoku region during the Great East Japan earthquake, where the petrol depot in one area there was damaged, resulting to massive fire in Kesenuma city. Now, the characteristics of major incidents are as follows. Some events may start as a major incident. So for example, Typhoon Yolanda was a Category 5 typhoon that resulted into massive destruction of properties and loss of lives. Now, other examples or other major incidents occur with little or no advance warning. So for example, earthquakes or flash floods or even tanker spills. Now, major incidents may start small. For example, our minor disease outbreaks due to environmental conditions, delays in response, or poor initial management and lack of resources. And these small incidents may keep growing into a major incidents. An example of which is our current pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I remember mga February, hindi pinapansin, we did not close our borders, and when the first local transmission happened, saka lang tayo gumalaw. So hanggang ngayon, we know what we are in now. Now, some issues in major incidents are as follows. Of course, you have more casualties, either dead, injured, or missing. Major incidents affect more number of our population. We have massive damage to infrastructure, properties, and the environment. Longer duration, and to respond to our major incident, it may involve more than one office, agency, or organization, and also may involve more than one political jurisdiction. And the management is quite complex and we have communications problems. Also, major incidents require more experienced and qualified supervisory incident management team. I will be discussing the IMT later on. And they also require a large number of tactical and support resources, have extreme elements of crisis and psychological trauma that diminish human capacity to function or cope. Now, I've experienced this several times na pag pupunta ako sa disaster area, minsan ayoko nang tuloy kasi ayoko nang nakikita na yung suffering ng mga victims doon sa disaster area. Now, also major incidents require extensive mitigation, recovery, and rehabilitation, such as the one that happened in the Mindanao earthquake, and they have greater media interest. Now, some challenges in responding to major incidents are as follows. Sabi nga naunang speakers, time is critically important because the situation might be unstable. The incident also has a potential to expand rapidly. Communications and information may be incomplete. Now, also, responders may not be experienced in managing expanding incidents. An example of this is the chemical fire in Cabuyao several years ago. It was a chemical fire na ang major or ang main fuel was alcohol. Yung mga responders or fire trucks na pumunta were using water. So instead of extinguishing the fire, napalaki pa nila ang sunog. So the fire was only put out when specialized firefighting equipment using foams came in. Also, all of the IMT positions are filled with a large organization, while a large organization is in place or is developing. Now, as the incident becomes more complex, you have to employ or call in other members of the incident command system, and so all the positions of the ICS are filled up. Also, multiple operational periods are probably required. So since major incidents may last for several days or even weeks or months, you have multiple operational periods to consider. The incident commander may change due to the complexity of the incident. And also other agencies or jurisdictions will be assisting. Characteristics of the ICS. The ICS has 5 different functions, namely command, operations, planning, logistics, finance, and administration. The command is being done by the incident commander, and he has overall responsibility over the incident. Tactical actions are performed by the operations section. Data gathering and the preparation of action plans, among others, are done by the planning sections. Logistical support provided by the logistics section. Maintaining accountability is done in administration section. Characteristic of the ICS is, in the ICS, we manage by objectives. Now, in responding, incident commander has to come up with his goal. And in order to do so, he should know and understand the policy and the direction of the unit or the CU for that matter. Now, given the scenario, the incident commander will establish the objectives, and then with the help of the planning and the operations section, select the appropriate strategy, and the operations section performs the tactical response. So, for example, if we have an earthquake in our area, our goal is to prevent casualties. So, to understand the policy and direction should be to prevent or to minimize casualties earthquake. Our objectives and our objective is, let's say, all 100 hours or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, with this objective, we select our appropriate strategy is to mobilize our search and rescue team. We do not deploy, for instance, the Wilderness Search and Rescue Team, or the WISAR, or the WASAR, the Water Search and Rescue Team. The appropriate search and rescue team that we should deploy here is the Collapsed Structure Search and Rescue Team, or the CSR. And then we perform now the tactical direction by deploying, say, for instance, 3 emergency medical teams, 3 ambulances, and 3 collapsed structure search and rescue teams. And so with this, we hope that our goal of preventing casualties is attained. Now, the third characteristic of an ICS is on the unity and the chain of command. When we say chain of command, this is the orderly ranking of management positions in line of authority, while the unity of command refers to the establishment of a clear line of supervision where every individual has a designated supervisor. Now, sometimes, if the incident commander is, let's say, not part of the university's executive or management committee, now sometimes nagkakaloko-loko itong chain of command. And I will explain how that will be addressed later on. Now, the fourth is ICS has organizational flexibility. This means that the ICS organization is flexible and modular. The organization develops in a top-down fashion, beginning with the incident commander, who is the first responder to an incident. And he establishes the organization based on the type of the incident size, complexity, and also specific to the hazard. The ICS is one that the form follows function. In other words, you only activate a particular section or a group if it is needed or necessary in the incident. Now, in the incident command system, we have the responsible official, who in our case is the president in the case of a system-wide crisis or incident, or the chancellor of the constituent unit for local incidents. The responsible official heads the policy group, which I propose to be to compose of the members of the Crisis Management Committee, plus, in the case of a CU, the vice chancellors, and in the system, the vice presidents. And in the case of the CUs, this will include the deans. They will provide the overall policy direction and guidance to the incident commander. The responsible official also serves as the link to higher authorities. Now, who are these higher authorities? Perhaps we have the CHED, or perhaps we have the governor of the province where the CU is located, and so on. And the responsible official delegates authority to the incident commander the incident. Now, the chancellor or the president will act as the incident commander. Now, this is similar to a corporate setup where you have a president and a CEO. So the president normally heads the board, and the CEO heads the day-to-day, or is in charge of the day-to-day activities of the company. Now, in the absence of the responsible official, a clear succession should be established. So when the chancellor, for instance, is on trip or is not available during the incident, who will take his place or her place? So normally the chancellor will designate an officer in charge, and ang problema dyan, the officer in charge cannot delegate his or her authority. So in this case, we need a clear succession line. So yung succession line na yan, that may depend on the CU. Now, looking at the incident command system, these chiefs or the people who are involved in these different boxes compose the incident management team. So it starts with the incident commander, and the incident commander has what we refer to as a command staff, consisting of the public information officer or the spokesperson, the liaison officer, and the security officer. And as I said, when there is a need, these four sections are activated: the operations section, headed by the operations section chief, the planning section, the logistics section, and the finance and admin section. These section chiefs form the general staff of the incident management team. Now, let's look at the responsibilities of each of these persons in the IMT. Now, as I said a while ago, the responsible official delegates authority to the incident commander. And the delegation of authority may be a statement or instruction, whether it be formal, written, or verbal, or just telling the incident commander directly, delegating the authority and assigning the responsibility to the incident commander. And this includes the objectives, priorities, expectations, constraints, and other considerations or guidelines. And these are actually determined by the policy group. And a note on this is that the chain of command between the incident commander and the responsible official must not be bypassed. Now, as I was saying a while ago, the incident commander need not be a vice chancellor or a dean. It may be just an ordinary employee of the. In the case of the ICS, there is of communication between the vice chancellors or the deans or whatnots cannot just go directly to the responsible official concerning the particular event. They must go through the incident commander. And it will be the incident commander who will report the ongoings or the actions taken by the IMT directly to the responsible official. Similarly, the responsible official will communicate directly to the incident commander, and the responsible official cannot go directly to the emergency response teams. So the responsible official has to go through the incident commander, and the incident commander to the operations section chief, and then to the emergency response teams. Now, the ICS organization begins with the incident commander being the first responder or as designated by the responsible official. And he receives the authority from the responsible official. And one important thing here is that the incident commander must be well versed with the unit's public service or the contingency plan. Now, he establishes the objectives based on the overall guidance given by the policy group. He is the one who establishes the incident management team and leads the tactical or on-scene response operations. One of his main responsibility is to ensure incident safety, especially the safety of all responding individuals, and maintains liaison also with participating response groups. And the tasks of the are as follows. He's responsible for the overall management of response, and he acts as the first responder to the incident. He assesses the situation and receives briefing from the responsible official, and in case he is the newly designated incident commander, replacing an outgoing one, he receives a briefing from the outgoing incident commander. And it determines the incident objectives and establishes the incident command post. Now, the incident command post is the post where the incident commander will be in responding to the incident, or this is what I oftentimes refer to as the ground zero post. He establishes the appropriate ICS organization based on the needs of the situation and establishes response priorities in consultation with the command and the general staff, or the IMT, and coordinates activities for all command and general staffs. He ensures planning meetings are scheduled as required, approves and authorizes the implementation of the incident action plan formulated by the planning group, and also ensures that adequate safety measures are in place with the help of the safety officer. The commander also approves requests for additional resources and their release, coordinates with key people officials with the help of the liaison officer, and keeps the responsible official informed of the incident status. And with the help of the spokesperson or the public information officer, he will release information to the media. Now, the IC response priorities are as follows. The IC decides and sets objectives based on the following priorities. First and foremost is the safety of the responders, the disaster victims, and the general public. Second, the IC must prioritize incident stabilization. And thirdly, property protection and conservation. Now, sino ba yung pwede maging effective na IC, na incident commander? Kung titignan niyo, napakabigat po nito para maging isang effective incident commander, because the IC must first understand the nature of the incident command system. Second, he has commander's presence. He's a proven manager, puts safety first, proactive and not reactive. He must be decisive, objective and calm, a quick thinker, a good communicator, adaptable and flexible, realistic about personal limitations, politically astute, has courage and conviction, and God-fearing. Now, the incident commander performs all ICS functions until additional positions are filled. Now, if the situation or if the incident is quite small, the incident commander need not call on, let's say, the finance and administration group, but he can perform the functions of the finance and administration group. He can direct all tactical operations. Of course, he is the incident commander, so he does all the command responsibilities. He performs all planning the responsibilities, determines logistics, serves as the public information officer, the safety officer, and the liaison officer, all at the same time. However, as the incident progresses and it becomes more complex, the incident commander may call on different persons to perform these different responsibilities. Staff who will provide information, liaison, and safety service organization by the situation. So the incident commander may designate a public information officer or call on the spokesperson of the university, the liaison officer, or the safety officer. Now, let's discuss this one by one. The public information officer must be well versed with the crisis communication plan that is established, because he is the focal person for information, and he works or she closely with all other information. Now, one PIO is needed per incident, and the PIO may have staff. Sino ito? The PIO may be the Vice Chancellor for Community Affairs, or it may be the Director of the Public Relations Office, or in the case of the university, it may be Director Wendell or VP Penny. That depends on who the incident commander will designate as the public information officer. But I believe that in the case of the university, any incident or unplanned or major, there will only be one designated spokesperson or public information officer. Now, the work location of the PIO may be separate from the command post, but it must be close enough to have access to information. And the PIO will lead the tour or photo of opportunities if it is requested, and it's the PIO who will arrange for this. Now, normally in the IMT or the Incident Command Post, we do not allow any media people there. The media people should be coordinating with the public information officer or spokesperson. The next is the liaison officer, and the liaison officer is the contact point for representatives of assisting and cooperating agencies. So, for instance, if there is a big fire on campus and the university cannot handle this fire, it is the liaison officer who will coordinate with the local BFP. And liaison officer, once the local BFP is already in place, may recommend to the incident commander that the incident command, the post of the incident commander be transferred to the fire marshal of the responding fire suppression team of the PFP. Now, the safety officer works with the operations section on tactics. His responsibility is to anticipate, detect, and correct unsafe situations. And he has the authority to stop any unsafe act or operations. There must be one safety officer per incident, and he may have several assistants. We recommend that the safety officer has undergone the Bosch or the COSH trainings, or certified as Bosch or COSH officer. Now, as the incident expands in complexity, the incident commander may add the general staff sections to maintain span of control. So, as mentioned earlier, the general staff are composed or is composed of the operations section chief, the planning section chief, the logistics section chief, and the finance and admin section chief. Now, who does what? So the incident commander has overall responsibility for the incident and he sets the objectives. The operations section chief develops tactical organization and directs all resources to carry out the IAP or the incident action plan, which is developed in the planning section. The planning section also maintains resource and situation status. The logistics section, on the other hand, provides resources and all other services needed to support the incident. So, for instance, kung masyadong malaki yung incident, it may require several hours. The logistics section will take care of the food, the water, and all other needs of all responding personnel. And finally, the finance and admin section monitors incident costs and provides fiscal guidance. Important also, an important job also of the finance and admin section is the procurement of the needed resources. The operations section is usually the first organization assigned to the incident. They are responsible for managing, directing, and coordinating all tactical resources. And this is, as I said, headed by the operations section chief. Now, if you have only a single resource like a fire truck, you call the team a single resource team, and this includes all personnel and equipment in that fire truck. So the driver, the fire hose operators, the pump operators, and so on. Now, if you have a combination of the same kind, let's say you need 2 or 3 ambulances, you call that response team a strike team. Now, in the case of, let's say, a collapsed structure or a landslide in the area, and it is NATEC, or you have a fire and a collapsed building or a landslide, you have a combination of single resources like earth moving equipment, a fire truck, a security force, or an EMT, or a BLS, or even an ALS team, Advanced Life Support Team. And you call this combination of single resources a task force. Now, for the planning section is responsible for all planning services, including the collection, evaluation, and the processing of data, situation data, and even resource status information. As mentioned earlier, the planning section develops the incident action plan to accomplish the objective set forth by the incident commander, and they maintain the situation and status, resource status. So here are some units of the planning section. You have the resources unit, the situation unit, the documentation unit, and the demobilization unit. So obviously, the resources unit monitors, consolidates, and reports resource status. Situation unit, they do that for the situation status. The documentation unit documents meetings and consolidates all reports, while the demob unit facilitates the demobilization of all resources employed. Now, sometimes the planning section will require the help of technical specialists. And the technical specialists are called upon whenever the incident requires his or their expertise and experience. So, for example, in the Mindanao earthquake response, UP sent a team of geologists from UPRI and from the National Institute of Geological Science. Ito po sila sa top picture, headed by Dr. Mahar. A team of structural engineers also headed by the Dean of the College of Engineering. Now, in the second picture, our team coordinated with the acting governor, the person in green, and the acting vice governor, Shirley, who was the incident commander at that time. So in the case of heavy precipitations, you may need flood control specialists and meteorologists. And in the case of our current pandemics, you may need epidemiologists, mathematicians, etc. Now, the logistics sections provides resources and all other services to support the incident. So the resources may be facilities, transportation, communication, supplies, and so on. Now, the units are as follows: the supply unit, facilities unit, ground support unit, communications unit, food, and then the medical unit. So, and finally, the finance and administration section monitors incident costs, maintains financial records, administers procurement contracts, performs time recording, and by the way, I forgot to write here, even claims and legal services. So for instance, ito yung claims, pagka nasira yung building and due to, let's say, a typhoon, strong winds, or landslides, the claims unit will be coordinating or will be filing for the claims in GSIS. The legal unit, for instance, if there are casualties in the incident, then we have some legal considerations also. So these are some of the units in the finance and admin section. Now, we're talking about the flexibility of the incident command system. Now, as the complexity of the incident increases from a very simple incident, let's say a simple vehicular accident, the ICS structure will be maybe as simple as this. You have there the IC, and then you have here the EMT, or you may also have the ALS, the Advanced Life Support Group. Okay, but as the incident increases in complexity, as in this collapse structure here, you need more resources. And so the organization of your ICS becomes more complex. Dr. Charlie Gundran will be talking about the levels of activation later. Now, the fifth characteristic of an ICS is ICS has a very good span of control. Now, in the ICS span of control for any supervisor, it is optimal that there should be between 3 to 7 subordinates under any supervisor. And ideally, we should have only around 5 subordinates. Now, if you have a structure like this where the supervisor has so many subordinates, this structure may be ineffective and possibly dangerous. Now, to have an effective span of control, the IC, for instance, will only have 3 to 7 persons under him, and each supervisor will only have 3 to 7 persons under them. You have a more effective span of control. Now, also in the span of control, do not combine functions for one organizational unit. Now, what do I mean here? Now, I have seen some ICS having search, security, and search and rescue unit. So this unit not just perform search and rescue, but they also conduct security services. So we do not recommend this type of setup. What we recommend is to separate the security unit from the search and rescue unit. So for instance, you have John Midnight in the security unit, and then the other unit, the search and rescue unit, to be headed by, let's say, Peter Morning. Now, the sixth characteristic is common terminology. Now, common terminology applies to organizational elements. The terminologies for the ICS organizational elements are standard and consistent. So whatever ICS unit you belong to, they are using the same terminologies. Also, for the resource descriptions, they are given common names and are listed by type and kind with respect to their capabilities. The facilities used during the response are named according to their common terminology. Now, all ICS communications should use clear text, or what I refer to as plain or common language. We do not recommend the use of radio codes, especially 10 codes or agency-specific codes. So 10 codes are commonly used by commercial radio operators. Now, UPLB used to have an agency-specific codes. We call them the 8 codes. Okay? Or don't use acronyms or other jargons. So, an example of which is this. Okay, here's a jargon. Control decision. There's a 1052 with 1057 on RG Zone 4. Please send 10, this should be 1054. Okay? Kung kayo ang nakakuha ng message na yan, I'm sure you will not understand what all these 10 codes mean. What's a 1052? What's a 1057? Where is RG Zone 4? Or what is a 1054? Now, in plain text, you just say, Control, this is shotgun. There's a vehicular accident with a hit and run case at the Raimundo Gate. Please send an ambulance. Now, clearly, this is more understandable by anybody in the ICS or in the IMT than the jargon one. Now, accountability. The ICS is an organization where accountability is very important. That is why it is very important that all responders must first check in with the IMT incident management team regardless of agency affiliation. Okay, and this should follow the established procedure of the incident command system. Now, also, a form of accountability is the incident action plan. Now, all response operations must be directed and coordinated as outlined in the incident action plan. And we have the unity of command in the ICS. Now, in resource tracking and management, supervisors must record and report resource status changes as they occur. They may use the manual systems using ledgers, T-cards on the boards, or even magnetic maps or status boards. Now, let's go to coordination versus command and control. Now, for coordination, this is a task of the responsible official. The responsible official and the principals from other agencies coordinate or undertake coordination through the following: making policy decisions, establishing priorities, resolving critical resource issues, mobilizing and tracking resources, and collecting, analyzing, and disseminating report or information. whereas the command and control is a function of the incident commander. The incident commander undertakes the following: commanding responders for on-scene operations, controlling and managing the resources deployed tactically on ground, and reporting progress and updates to the responsible official. Now, this is how coordination and command and control works. In the Emergency Operations Center, you have there the responsible official together with the policy group. Now, under the responsible official is the head of all response clusters. So you have there the education response cluster, the health, this is actually the water, sanitation, and health group, international humanitarian assistance group, logistics, management of the dead and missing, protection, food and non-food items, search, rescue and retrieval, law and order, emergency telecommunication, and camp coordination and camp management. So that's where they are located at the EOC, or the Emergency Operations Center. On ground, on the other hand, is the Incident Command Post, and this is headed by the Incident Commander with the ICS. It is in the Incident Command Post where you have command and control, and the coordination is done in the Emergency Operations Center. And take note that there is a direct communication, or there is a communication line between the incident commander and the responsible official. Now, the facility that serves as repository of information and main hub for the interagency cooperation is the Emergency Operations Center. Now, this is the EOC at the OCD, Office of Civil Defense and NDRRMC. So that's the EOC. So you see there the President. This is the Secretary of National Defense. This is Secretary Medjaldia, and you have your favorite senator there. Talking about the Incident Command Post, the ICP, which has this symbol on the map, is located, or is the location where the primary command functions are performed. The ICP should not be moved or relocated unless absolutely necessary, and may be co-located with other facilities, especially facilities for the other sections of the IMT. Now, some ICP facilities may include the planning section where you have the briefing area and the registration and check-in. On the picture above, you have the briefing area in the Incident Command Post in the Mindanao. This person here is the Operations Section Chief. He is the Fire Chief of Makita. Now, they also have the logistics area, the communications facility in the picture on the right. This is the communication center manned by elements of DX8 CAD, the cadre, or Cotabato Amateur Disaster Radio Enthusiast. And incidentally, I trained these 4 guys and helped them get their licenses. You may also have the finance and admin area. Now, other IMT areas are the staging area. This is managed by the operations section. This is the temporary location for resources awaiting assignments. On the map, it is marked with an S. You may have the base or the location for primary support activities or out-of-service equipment for repair, or personnel who are resting or who are undergoing medication. That's the base. You may have the camp. That is the temporary location to provide services to ICS personnel. That's C. And when necessary, and you may have the heli base, or H. Now, finally, in organizing UP response, crisis response, the President already issued AO number PDLC 21-07, and amended by AEO number 21-26, creating the UP System Crisis Management Committee with this as the functions of the committee. Now, what we are doing now is actually part of the functions of the UP Crisis Management Committee. Now, together with this memo was the ordered for each CU to establish its crisis management committee, and the memorandum actually recommended the composition of the CU Crisis Management Committee with the Chancellor as chair and Vice Chair as the Vice Chancellor for Public Affairs or equivalent, and so on. And I believe that all CUs already responded to this, and each CU has its own crisis management committee. Now, where are we now? AOPDLC 21-24 already established a subcommittee for students in distress. This is headed by AVP Richard Gonzalo. AO 21-23 appoints VP Nes Yunque as the chair of the faculty and staff in distress. As of now, we are still forming this subcommittee, and I believe we already have some members of this subcommittee. Now, some units have their OHSSC. This is the Occupational Health and Safety Standards Committee. I know for a fact that UPLB has the OHSSC. Some units or CUs have their DRRMC. Some have their Safety and Security Committee, and others or other CUs have their other committees. In fact, from a document that I obtained, UP Manila has this structure already. Under the Health and Safety Committee, they have 5 subcommittees: the Industrial Hygiene, Disaster Management, Environmental Health, Health and Wellness, and Campus Safety and Security. Now, each CU may adopt their own structure for their crisis management committee. Okay? But ako, if you will ask me, I propose the following. You have the policy group there, the Crisis Management Committee. Take note that the UP Crisis Management Committee has the president as the chair, so our responsible official is already in this committee. And we already formed the Students in Distress Subcommittee and the Faculty and Staff in Distress. We are in the process of forming or constituting the Disaster Management Committee. In our first session, it was pointed out that an IT-related subcommittee be formed, and in response to, let's say, the UP DND Accord abrogation, we can include the Safety and Security Committee, plus other subcommittees that we deem are necessary based on our needs or on our horizon scan. So CUs, as I said, may adopt this proposed structure, or they may come up with their own structure. And the subcommittee tasks are as follows. You identify current and unforeseen crisis situations, prepare your subcom CMP, strategize operational activities, projects, and or programs to address specific crisis situations, assess the ongoing and or completed management of episodic crisis situation, evaluate the implementation of ongoing and or completed crisis management plans, and act as the ICS if the need arises. Now, also, there is a need for us to organize our different response teams and clusters. And again, the different response teams and cluster depends on the CU needs. And I thought of the following common emergency response teams: search and rescue teams, medical or first aid teams with a BLS know-how, firefighting or the fire suppression team, building exit and evacuation team. You see at the bottom picture the different teams already organized in UPLB under the UPLB University Police Force. Now, on the picture of the right, this is actually a volunteer group of UPLB. It's Eurocom, United Radio Organization and Communication, and they are we. Kasi ako po ito, I headed the group. We are also well versed not just in ordinary SAR, but also in WASAR, WISAR, and high angle rescue. You can see in this picture, we are carrying high angle rescue equipment. We were on our way to rescue a victim in peak 2 of Mount Makiling. And this was way back April 2019 during the Make It Makiling event in UPLB. Now, also UPLB UPF has these different resources under the care of, as I said, UPF. Each team has a mobile vehicle, and each team or the UPF has 2 Hagads, motorcycles, and they have their brand new, hindi naman na brand new kasi matanda na ng 2 years, fire engine. Stationed at the UPMO University Physical UPMO Planning and Maintenance Office are this equipment: man lifts, dalawa. This is a cherry picker, and we have this several standby generators. We have several units, several standby generators. And finally, for assistance and capacity trainings on hazard, vulnerability, and risk assessment, public service and continuity planning, contingency planning, and even response team trainings, you may contact us, the UP Resilience Institute Office of Institution Building. Lilima lang po kami, lilima lang po ang staff ko ngayon. This is Sunny Ongkiko, our Chief Science Research Specialist. He's also well trained in the ICS and a first responder also. And in closing, nagamit ko na ito noon pero gagamitin ko pa rin. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Mamaya na yun. So maraming salamat po. Jean Quaresma, UPRI, ang inyong lingkod.